Here he is. Hello.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you, man?
Oh, good, man. Let me just make you look big and let me just turn this off. All very technical for me. Yeah, I'm very good. You're looking well. You enjoying Bali?
I am. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm loving it. I still haven't quite figured out when Roger Hamilton's running courses here, so I can put some expenses through the business. But like Hez was at one of his iLabs last month, and apparently he's doing his last one next year. But honestly, every time I go on the website, I can't find it. So just kind of left it for now. But yeah, it's a great island, mate.
Why is he doing his last one? Do you know?
I don't know. Apparently, Hez says this is going to be his last one next year, but maybe he says it all the time. But I'm not entirely sure. So, you drinking Corona?
Oh, it's Corona glass. I'm drinking like a cherry and water thing.
How are you getting on?
Yeah, good. Kind of busy enough. Kind of doing lots of little refurbs at the moment. Kind of watching the market. Probably about to go back into acquisition mode. Seems to be lots of deals coming about, lots of stuff not selling at auction. So it's kind of quite difficult to predict, though. So it's kind of really not sure is this the start of a decline for 12 months? So you better keeping your powder a bit dry and getting cash, or is everything kind of going to go back to normal in February, March time? And who knows really?
Yeah, just recover when it's like the market has a really good way of sort of being ahead of recessions because the market's quite sophisticated, or at least the stock market. I'm not so sure about the property market, but yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely things in the property market. It's a bit like when you take like, so you know it's in bad when like commercial always drops first, but commercial always goes up first as well. So if commercial is kind of going up, you know the economy is coming back, and it's a bit like, I think the stock market overshoots each time as well. So it kind of it's not uncommon when you're in a recession that the market rises, if you get me, because it's already built everything into it, sort of thing.
That was exactly my point. Yeah, it's like sophisticated. It's already like a year ahead. It could be already through the recession, you know, while before recession's even announced. In a way, it's like, yeah.
I just don't know if as well. I'm not. I'm glad Rishi's in power, but I'm not really over enthralled with what I've seen the government do. You know, you kind of we seem to be very like a budget house now rather than trying to get parts of the economy going again. And I don't know, I almost think we should be done with politics now. I think the last year's just kind of proven there's a better way to run the country than let those nutters in House of Commons and House of Lords do.
Mate, 100%, of course, 100%. So you just sat on some cash right now then, or will you use investors' money?
No, sat in cash basically. So I'm weighing up whether to lend that out, which I'm kind of a little bit wary about because kind of fell into that mistake a little bit in 2000 and whatever, 10, 11. I lent out too much money when there was kind of deals. And but then I don't like not earning money on the cash either. But it's not because I'm reasonably busy as well. It's certainly not the end of the world. Yeah, so I kind of basically evaluating stuff each month. I mean, we bid at auction yesterday. We were going to pay up to 250, and it went for over 500.
Oh my god! Yeah, it's there's nothing worse than losing money. And I think when you don't know what's coming and you don't know what shit's coming down the pipe, you know, you lend money to the wrong person. It is, you know, I'm sure you've lost money before. That just never feels that feels so risky to me. But anyway, yeah, I tend to be a bit more risk averse and sit on my cash. But there's no perfect world.
You buy crypto instead.
I know. Well, fuck me. But I'm quite happy with my crypto. Yeah, I probably, if I knew now what I know then, I probably would have weighted more in dollar cost averaging a bit more. But I'm not. It's not that bad, and I only really hold Bitcoin, and it's like it's going to have another cycle. It's just.
Yeah, I've got Amazon shares there. Yeah, 30% down. I think I probably bought them about 2 years ago or so, something like that. So
yeah, it's just the way it goes. It's a downturn. It's the way it is. But
yeah, I must admit though, what this has done for I'll never say never because you don't know, but I don't like buying individual shares. I'd much rather just have a tracker. It's so much more simple.
Totally. I bought a blockchain company on like a whim, $5,000 before I bought all my blockchain, and then forgot to sell it. And that blockchain company's gone bust now. They're worth 100 quid, basically. It's like, fuck. Yeah. That really stings.
Yeah. I just find as well, the reality is when you buy shares, you can be quite good at doing research, looking at the information, but almost if you're like a proper share investor, you need to like have alerts set up to see every single press release and evaluating it, and it's just and it gets quite boring as well, you know, unless you're, you know, I mean, I could see not Amazon, like some of the stuff that Tesla's doing could be of a bit of interest, but yeah, whilst Amazon's a great company and, you know, stuff like Google, a lot of it's quite boring as well, if you get me.
Bloody boring, and that's the problem. If you're not watching it, then you get left out when everyone, it's just, yeah, you've got to be obsessed by it. And then even then, there's always someone more obsessed than you. So it's not really a game for me anyway. That's definitely not.
No.
So 2 questions, mate. One is, have you managed to fill in the link I sent you, which is like asks for?
The answer is no. I forgot.
So have you and things like that. Have you managed to fill that in? Okay, yeah, I thought it would be. So I'll send you the link again.
You've frozen slightly. Oh no, you're back. Speak. You're sticking your tongue out now.
Okay, I'll just take my video. If that happens during the recording, I've done a couple of these recently and it's been fine. But if it freezes, I'll just turn my video off because you'll be doing most of the talking. Can you hear me?
I can do now. Yeah, all good.
Okay, cool. Right, let me send you on WhatsApp the link. So you've got the link.
Let me open my phone again.
So you can fill that in. That'll take 5 minutes. We just need a picture of you, which I'm sure you've got. And then the second question is, what claim to fame do you think is appropriate to use for you? Is it like financial fortress complete? Is it retired? Is it slow and steady wins the race? Is it like, because slow and because my understanding, I think I said to you on the voice note, my understanding is you said to Dan recently you're quite happy with where you got to with your net wealth. But it's taken you a while, hasn't it? I mean, you've been in property now for like 10 years, right? So or longer, but you know, full time.
So I mean so the reason I'm hesitating, it's
we don't want your ex-wife to get involved.
No, not that. I'm kind of more just thinking it's kind of like it's a marketing angle versus just what I do. I mean, the probably like those 3 that you said is probably like slow and steady wins the race, but I think also the kind of to some extent I've, you know, there's not necessarily a right and wrong, but some extent what a lot of people are trying to do in property entrepreneur is create a trading business that then gives them some cash to buy, the financial fortress. Yeah. I kind of did it back to front, but some of it's still similar. When I say back to front, ultimately I had a job that paid for some deposits that had some money. I then did developments that gave chunks of profit that helped to do stuff. I did JVs with people that helped to get deposits, do more projects. And then I've kind of done the lending business. I mean, the coaching business, less, it's fluff, but the lending business has then given chunks of cash as well.
So how about, but there will be other people, mate, that will be inspired by that journey. How about like from corporate to capitalist?
That's right. You lot are so cheesy.
We'll come up with the cheesy lines, but basically what I really want to, I guess we know what it is. You've gone from the corporate world to a full-time property investor. Yeah. And money lender, and you've been doing it for long enough where you've got experience, and you're in a position where loads of people would love to be. There's people in high-paying jobs that would love to basically get to where you are. That's what it is, isn't it? That's what it is.
What about as well? Is there anything that you can do about? I mean, part of the reason I believe I've also done it is I think I didn't come up with this. It's kind of more when I reflected it. I do think like property is the easiest way to create wealth, so the point that the banks lend you 75% at a minimum interest rate, you keep all the equity and the yield. So to some extent, when kind of Dan talks about you're kind of mastering your market, looking for a niche, I think, a bit like what we talked about before, trying to do crypto shares, fucking difficult to really make money from it. I really don't think property is that difficult. So I suppose my question is, if you're wanting a title, is there something that can be spun around property investing? And I suppose that's the other bit to me, is that I'm an investor. Like I would never class myself as a property entrepreneur. I kind of, it's that, you go Dan's model, whatever, landlord, investor, entrepreneur. Yeah. I've really focused quite deep in the investor level. So, and probably taken bits from landlord and entrepreneur, but I suppose that's another way to potentially spin it or think about it.
Well, to be honest, Dan will probably come up with the title, but what I'm going to do is say, I mean, I don't know if you've read the spreadsheet I sent you, but the document I've sent you, basically what I'll ask you is, where were you before you joined Property Entrepreneur? And where are you now? Obviously, you know where you are now. And hopefully obviously the point of the call is to try and share the challenges of the journey and any insight. Ideally, 4 problems that you solved. Like, do you know what those problems are now, just in advance? Have you got them kind of in your head? Or
I can, short answers,
Cool. And then just some top tips. So I think the big thing for me will be, I'll just say that, you are long-term property entrepreneur, property investor, and you've successfully transitioned from a high-paying corporate job into a very enviable position of being an experienced property investor with a profile that you're just making it happen, basically. And it's been a slow and steady wins the race journey, and you're a steal. And obviously we can play on that, and then you can just talk about the journey, really.
I think that's perfect. And then I think, to be honest, I think then depending on exactly how I respond to you, we probably then almost reflect, once we see exactly the stuff that's in it, and think of what's the most applicable stuff to say.
Yeah.
Because there may be a spin on investor for it, if you get me. Because from what you said, it is slow and steady wins the race, but that's probably not that exciting a title.
But equally, it takes all sorts, and I think that not everyone's interested in the crazy trading business. That's not everyone. We've got quite a few people in your position who've got a bit of money and transitioning. So it's the tortoise and the hare, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
That might be one of your tips, though. Slow and steady wins the race. If you haven't already got a tip, so you might want to, like, you could say, I'm not 25. I didn't start a crazy business, but I just Year on year, I turn up to Property Entrepreneur. Year on year, I hold myself accountable. Year on year, I set a strategy. Year on year, I do it. You know, year on year, I go skiing as a reward. And it's like, you just do it every year. Every year you're going up.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, good. Well, it's good to talk about that before, just to check we're on the same page. So what I'll do is, I think we're already recording. Let me just check. Yeah, we are recording. Cool. All right. Well, we'll just start then. So I'll start and I will just basically ask you who you are, what your company does, and how long you've been on Property Entrepreneurs. Just give a little bit of background on yourself, and then where were you when you started? Just a brief insight, not I just left Dubai, whatever. And then where are you now? And then the problems. All right.
Yeah. Perfect.
Cool. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Property Entrepreneur Hall of Fame. It gives me a huge pleasure and a sense of massive satisfaction to introduce to you our latest Hall of Famer. His name is Mr. Billy Turriff. He's a long-term Property Entrepreneur board member and a very good friend of lots of the board. Billy, congratulations on making the Hall of Fame.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goff. Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too. For people that don't know Billy, Billy has successfully transitioned from corporate high flyer to full-time property entrepreneur investor. Billy, give us an idea then, now that people know a little bit about you, first of all, where are you based? What company or companies do you have? And how long have you been on Property Entrepreneur?
Do the last question first and then work our way back. So I think I joined the same year as you. So I think it would have been end of 2016, start 2017. So it's probably 5-6 years around the track now, which is kind of quite scary because it just seems like yesterday. I've got a couple of different companies. So I've got my main business is my buy to hold investment business. So that's got a mixture of assets in it, from student HMOs, professional HMOs, commercial properties, some serviced accommodation in there as well. I've then got a niche lending business that we do in kind of a first charge basis with individuals called Kensington Finance. And then I've got a small coaching business where I kind of work with individuals who really want to do what I've done. Either we're in the corporate world and they want to get out of it and be full-time in property, or they've maybe left the corporate world, they are full-time in property, but they're not receiving the returns that they want to. Perfect.
The 3 different revenue streams that we literally teach on Property Entrepreneur textbook, Billy. We can talk more about that in a second. So whereabouts in the country are you based?
Yeah, so I'm based in Manchester, as in that's where my home is. My portfolio is mainly in Manchester and Liverpool, so I kind of spend half my time each week in Liverpool and half in Manchester.
So you're part of the Northwest powerhouse. So
exactly.
You've obviously got you're employing a variety of strategies across your portfolio, which is really impressive. Where were you when we first met 6-7 years ago, when you first started Property Entrepreneur? Where were you in your life and your business life and your life then? Yeah, so I was in quite a good place. So I kind of left the corporate world probably about maybe 6 to 9 months by the time I met Dan. And but the year before I'd left the corporate world, I'd got on quite an aggressive expansion to build my portfolio so I could come back from Dubai to be based in the Northwest. And really at that time, before I met Dan, and it was the right thing to do, I was just thinking about building a portfolio, making sure I could get cash that would come in. What I hadn't really thought about is, well, how are you going to manage that? What people do you need? What are you going to do around finance, etc.? And really the work I've done with Dan, people like you, Joss, other people in property entrepreneurs, to actually say, well, it's good that you've got a business or you've got, money coming in, but what you want to be careful is how to protect that, how to grow it year on year, but also how to manage it, to make sure, one of the things we talk about as well is kind of life by design. And some of the stuff, to be honest, even before getting into technical, was working through, did I want to be an investor or did I want to be a business owner? And it probably took me about 12 months to do that, kind of ran out, recruited a whole lot of people, put them on PAYE, and then kind of felt a little bit trapped from it, and then was almost going up the wrong ladder, doing property
entrepreneur kind of helped me to put a more flexible team in place, but with everyone on performance contracts. So it's much more their service providers. So I can kind of concentrate on the business rather than being a manager, which is one of the things I didn't like in the corporate world and why I got out of it.
Well, exactly. And I mean, this whole transition from being a high paid corporate earner, there'll be many people listening that will be in that situation, and they'll want to have transitioned and followed your journey. And I think really just some of what you were saying is, when we'll talk about how Property Entrepreneurs helps you later, but it's giving you a framework. So you didn't go and create a big mess, because obviously you were keen to buy, and then people create quite a noisy business in inverted commas without realizing, and then get themselves in corners like you did with PAYE and stuff. So fast forward to 7 years, there'll be a number of challenges and lessons and excitements and achievements along the way. But where are you now? So looking back then, where are you now? Like where you're at?
Yeah, so I mean, I've diversified my portfolio a bit. So when I first doing it, I was very student driven. I've also exited certain markets. So I was also a developer at that point. So in terms of kind of niching in terms of what I wanted to do, I've got a staffing model that won't change. I've also got a very different finance model where stuff like cash flow, balance sheets, risk, much more about managing risk now than pure growth, which is where I was about at the start. So really, the businesses have matured. The lines are the same minus the development, but really much more about fine tuning each of them individually, and also survived the joys of COVID.
Exactly. Well, you got through COVID. You've repositioned, so you've kept yourself relevant. I know you went through quite a big transition from. We'll talk about it more, from out of the student market and the HMO into HMOs. But it sounds now like you've got some people systems. You've got a process for modeling, recruiting people, managing people. You've got some financial systems. So you've got like some infrastructure to basically keep you on the rails. And you're a very modest chap. You're in a very good position. You've worked hard year on year, and I know from conversations that you've steadily increased, the value of your estate by just showing up consistently. And I think that's very admirable. And like I said, there'll be lots of people that will, because to be able to ride the ups and the downs is what's important in business. So especially as we come into a recession at the moment. So a very big congratulations for where you've got to, Billy. And I'm looking forward to hearing about the challenges that you've had along the way. Like, what has the journey been like, and what have been the biggest problems you'd say that you've had to overcome to get where you are, and that other people can take from to learn for themselves?
Yeah, so I think some of the challenges is if you look at the assets I invested in and the market to start with. So as I said, to start with, I was very much student HMOs, and then also let's do developments. So when I kind of focus on the student HMOs, the reality was I was one of the first people in Liverpool who changed kind of 2-bedroom house to 6-bedroom houses. And I probably went on that wave for a couple of years. And whilst I was on that wave, lots of other people then came into the market, copied what we were doing, which is fine, and also built on it. So we'd kind of gone from 2 bedrooms to 6 bedrooms with 2 or 3 bathrooms. The next lot of developers came in and they were doing like 6 bedrooms with en suites. So then product was probably getting a bit better. And also so there was far more supply, and also from a financial perspective, I was over concentrated in Liverpool. I had a conversation with 𝗂𝗶𝘀𝗶𝘀 when we're kind of doing a review, and they said, look, it's great you've got these 25 HMOs in Liverpool, but we'd also like to see you work in another city as well. And that was one of the reasons why I came to Manchester. So understand, and since that, I've then kind of gone into, for example, the Airbnb business, but also doing multi-lets on commercial side, also doing blocks of flats. It's kind of understanding that your property is good because it's slow. We don't, at the end of the day, if you think of it, you live in your parents' house, you move to student halls, you move to an HMO, you move to flat, you move to a house. There's not loads of stuff out there. But there is different ways you can sweat an asset and you can put it in place. So certainly one of the challenges has been understanding that market and adjusting to it. And also, quite blunt, understanding different cities. It takes time to, particularly you haven't grown up somewhere, to get to know a city, get to know the good, the bad areas, get to know where the potential will be. So certainly doing that has been one of the main challenges from kind of a macro perspective. Really at the micro level is getting to satisfactory position between using agents and employing my own staff. So we've got a bit of a hybrid model, which has taken some time to get there, whereby, we'll use agents heavily for the student stuff, because students turn up en masse. They come and they say, show me a 6-bedroom house, and they'll want to see 10, 15 of them. So you're far better, in my view, with agents for student houses. It's just a more mature market sort of thing, rather than it being investor-led. However, where agents can crucify your business, to be quite frank, is how they'll maintain it, your costs, etc. So I've got a self-employed facilities manager, and any of our maintenance requests, above like £250 will be managed by that maintenance person. And also, in addition to that, that maintenance person working with me, we will review our houses each year, because that's the thing as well, that when you go from acquisition to operational mode, one of the mistakes a lot of people do, it's quite easy to buy properties, there's lots of them on Rightmove, but if you don't look after them, they'll start to degrade, etc. We've always managed to let our stuff, because we've got a robust facilities management plan in place, whereby each year we review stuff, we do stake of what's got to be done, and then Rachel and the rest of the people then execute it. So certainly the challenge around how we kind of operate that, and that's kind of using our sales staff, our maintenance, also, admin. We've got a VA that works with me in that. And then the fourth side of it is on our account side, where kind of work well with a bookkeeper and an accountant, to kind of manage the monthly accounts, and then to manage the year-end accounts. But that's probably, to say, the macro level, understanding changes in markets. Still doing what we did with the students. With the students, we bought stuff, we paid X, we refurbed it, it cost Y, but then our end value is more than X plus Y, so we could get our cash out. We took that same model and we said, how could that work for commercial? So we bought one commercial building, rented out to a spa, kind of said, well, if we break this building into little rooms and we rent it out to 9 different businesses, will that give us more money? And we managed to do that because we bought it well. We did a little bit of rejig in that, not significant. But then when we then refinanced it, because we had strong rental income, we could get the money back from it again. And that's really how we built stuff year on year, is by doing momentum investing. We've also done that on the build to rent side. So we've done a number of commercial to residential deals, particularly during COVID. And before COVID, where we've kind of taken small commercial buildings, converted them to 2 or 3 apartments, got them fully let, then refinanced and got our cash all back out and basically gone again.
Billy, you make it sound so easy, but there's a lot of challenges in there. For those people that don't know Billy, Billy is a steel wealth dynamics profile. He's our resident steel on the board level, and he is famous for his attention to detail and for just looking at things slightly differently. But all of that takes a lot of know-how. And I think the interesting, I'm just going to pick up on a few things that you've said that I thought were fascinating. One is, you really knew your niche. When you started, you focused on the student HMOs in Liverpool, and you had your 20+ houses there, and you nailed a niche. You had a sweet spot. You were riding the crest of a wave. You were first in. It's like textbook property entrepreneur blueprint. And then what everyone does actually when they get to a level of success is they realize they need to diversify, because now they've got all their eggs. They're really good at one thing, but if that one thing falls over, they fall over. So now you've diversified, you've gone to different cities. And I think that's all part of the journey. And we would recommend specializing and then then diversifying like that. I just want to talk more about the hybrid model between, because there'll be a lot of landlords out there who are thinking, that's interesting. So Billy's done this. So you do use agents, but you then have your own, so you take a hands-on approach to management beyond a certain level. Is that how you work? Do you pay agents on a monthly basis? Is it just a finder's fee for the tenant?
Just so they'll match again. I don't I don't want to talk to students. I actually do talk to them when we visit the houses once a year, and I kind of, it's a more a quality check on the agents. But I don't want to hear from someone that they're at 4 in the morning when they're drunk that they've lost their keys, basically. So I pay the agents a management fee, full management, for all Liverpool HMO properties. That fee is negotiated because of the size of the portfolio, and also because they do know that, you know, we will manage our own maintenance from it as well, which, to be honest, I don't mean about, they don't like, because if they did it, they'd make more money. But, you know, I mean, I could guarantee you that we're probably saving easily 50% on our maintenance by doing it that way. And also I've then got quality control on it, you know, which it's, you know, agents don't have high margins. So actually having that quality control can be difficult. And also a lot of it's the staff. You know, I can have the same painter, I know what he does. If they change painters, you know, they don't know this next one's going to be as good as the one before. So on the half the portfolio, it's fully letting, rent collecting, dealing with student queries is the agents, but we do the maintenance. Also the students, because they come and go each year, there's quite a good opportunity to do annual plans around it, whether it's cleaning the gutters, doing the backyards, etc., upgrading the properties. You know, again, we bought our first one in 2011, so it's kind of gone from rubbish furniture to built-in furniture, carpets to laminate, etc., brown kitchens to whatever funky kitchens Rachel puts in. When it then comes to
who's Rachel?
The non-student properties.
Really? Sorry. Who's Rachel?
Rachel's the facilities manager.
Okay, cool. Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
When it then comes to non-student properties, we've kind of, you know, we used to use agents, and I remember I did an analysis one time, and basically my fees for using student agencies was around about 10%. My fees for using agents, when all their fees were put in, so turnaround, inventories, etc., was nearer 24-25%. So it's quite significant. And again, it's taken me probably about a year. It took us to get to the exact model that we wanted, and I'll explain the model. I'll tell you how we got there. But basically, we have an admin person, we have a portfolio person who are both self-employed, and the admin person will do the admin stuff, so stuff like ASTs, stuff like checking when all the gas certs are done on Arthur, etc. The portfolio person will do the viewings, will do the inspection checks on the person, and will help with some of the refurb stuff as it's ongoing. And it's really on a pay-as-you-go basis. Again, I mean, the last year there has just been very little turnover, so it's actually been quite light touch from that. You know, a lot of the work has been on maintenance and increasing rent, but also, you know, when we had to fill the commercial entity, you know, the portfolio person had to make a Facebook page, had to get advertising for outside, had to work with the solicitors to get contracts in place, because it's different to residential, meet the people, etc. But again, we have, you know, even like the commercials, like probably an hour's drive away, and we do all the viewings remotely. You know, and again, to be honest, till COVID happened, we would have never have thought that. You know, so I'm not going to say it was a big strategic decision, but my point is, once you know, if you've got a scale where you can afford to pay people like we're at, you know, so we've got 20 student houses, but then 30 of the other houses. So there's enough tenancies there to be able to pay. And just to be clear, these, you know, my admin person does 40 hours per month, you know, and there's a lot of stuff outside of the property. She's probably only doing 10 hours property and 30 hours of other stuff, you know, like accounts, etc. and the portfolio manager is doing about 10 hours a month. So it's quite light touch from that.
And there's no fixed overheads on this. What you've successfully done is you've built a business rather, you said, I don't want students calling me. You've built a business, which is this infrastructure around your portfolio, which allows you to do what you want to do and insulates you from the stuff you don't want to do in a cost-effective way, which is the difference between some people say, well, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. Well, you might not call yourself an entrepreneur, but you've actually built yourself a business there that is, that is highly lucrative and highly leveraged, and you're doing what you want to do. So that's also very impressive.
Yeah, and I think it's worth saying as well, when we did build it, so what to get there was a case, it wasn't a case of just saying take on someone and have them 40 hours a month. At the start, there was a bigger chunk. That was one of the things that kind of came from Property Entrepreneur. I mean, I remember the first kind of staff member I took on, it was almost like, here's everything I don't like, can you go and sort it? And then kind of 3 months later, they're like, I'm leaving, I don't know what I'm doing, and you're a nightmare to work with. I'm like, oh, okay, thanks.
Many entrepreneurs will be in that same situation.
Yeah. Whereas, on the admin and the portfolio side, it was a case of actually working out what we do, documenting a process manual, and spending a lot of time actually going through it bit by bit, so actually showing how stuff worked. And then also kind of utilizing tech. So, we've got stuff like, again, it's not complicated, but Arthur, Xero, Google, without those kind of 3 tech enablers, we would struggle. But again, don't quote me on this. I think the dearest tech one of that is Xero, that's 25, 26 quid a month. I think, or no, sorry, Arthur, we probably pay about £70 a month. But again, it's not. You put it, it's not significant tech spend.
It's not significant, but it's a building systems, and that's obviously you've overcome that challenge with getting these tech systems in place, but not just, and it's a very, very classic journey of trying to abdicate everything to someone you've hired, and then understanding that building a business is documenting what you do, in which we teach in winter, and then hiring someone and training them on it, and actually training them on it probably 5 times longer than you'd want to. But the reality is that's what people need to get good at something. And then only then can you take your hands off the wheel. So it sounds like you've learned that lesson.
Yeah, and I think also the bit that's probably worth there as well, in terms of the staff, is using the likes of the Wealth Dynamics tool, which we do, to make sure we've got the right people to do the job. To start with, I tried to recruit people like me, which is fine for me to go to the pub with and have a drink, but it's not really fine if you want them to do jobs that are different to my skill set, if you get me.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely something we teach, is just, you need to hire people that have varying skill sets. I've fallen into that trap too. I used to hire people that I'd like to go to the pub with, and it didn't work out at all well. So understanding what profile people are for your recruitment. And you probably, when you started, never wanted to recruit anyone. You probably thought, I don't want to recruit anyone, I don't want to have a team. But then you realize actually you need a team, and they can be incredibly useful if you know how to do it.
Absolutely. And also though, I wouldn't say it was ego, but I did at one point think I wanted what I'd call a massive business, and I quite quickly, what I was good at was I quite quickly understood what it took to have a massive business, but also to understand the risk and rewards. There's very few businesses that succeed. I'd argue there's loads of, if you look at this percentage rate for businesses that are about in 5 years versus the percentage rate of investors and landlords, it far favors the investors and landlords. The downside is my wealth is the portfolio. It's not going to be sold at a multiple of profits, although it could be potentially, but it would be minimal. Whereas it's not like a company that can be sold at 10 times profit. So you lose some of the upside, but I actually think the cards are far much more in your favor as an investor. And also, to be blunt, I do like to do things differently. So as in do different things, whereas which I could do from the student stuff to the commercial to the SA to the lending to the training. When you're running a business, I think you've got to create a brand, you've got to create a shop, you've got to put people there. You can't be doing as much different stuff, which and there's no right or wrong. But I like change. I like different projects each year. And being at the investor level means it's much easier to pivot than what it would be, as I say, if I had a shop front, for example.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, thank you for that insight, Billy. Just so everyone really, just to give some more depth to what Billy's saying, we talk about the different levels you can play the game at as a property entrepreneur. You can be a landlord level where the business is your job. You are the business, the tenants call you, and if you're on holiday, things don't get done. You can have investor level where you've got a small team, it's flexible, they come to you, your team will come to you for things, you're managing them, but you're close to it, you know how the business is doing, it's enjoyable, it's dynamic, and it's a small enough team to really have a lifestyle business. Or the entrepreneur level, which is where you're creating a corporate entity, and you're running what some of us might esteem as a proper business, although all of the three are businesses, and you're really potentially going for some kind of trade sale or exit or some sort of big impact that's only available with massive leverage, which comes from huge risk. So yeah, I absolutely share Billy's sentiment on where he's at, and I think that's fascinating. So you've also talked about potentially maybe you've now got some more sophisticated finance systems, and so was that maybe another problem that you had on the way, or is there another problem that you think might be worth sharing? Just
yeah, so certainly what I'd call, if you think property to me is the easiest business to be in, because it's the only business where a bank will lend you 75% of the money and let you keep all the capital growth, and you get to keep the yield. If you're opening a restaurant, you're not going to get money lent to you like that. If you're doing a letting agency, you're not. The downside of property is it's quite capital intensive, obviously. So how I've kind of modeled stuff is I look at it kind of as fast pound and slow pound. So there's the slow pound is buying stuff and having it kept with you, and then refinancing it every 5 years, 10 years as it goes up in value, and keeping cash flow from it. The fast pound is what's kind of given me lumps of cash to invest, and that's been that's been other people's money, doing joint ventures with people, borrowing money from people. It's also been doing developments whereby we've done like six listed buildings now to apartments that we've sold off, which has then given us profits that we could kind of invest, and also a kind of lending and coaching business that will pay funds on a monthly basis, which is really profit play. So certainly on the building the portfolio, you've got to be aware of how you get quick pounds versus what your slow pounds are, and also just making sure that everybody wants to do everything quick, and I totally get that, but also you can as long as you've got enough reserves, you can also never go bust. So, and also, say if you own 20 houses or 30 houses, your life's not hugely going to change. So certainly being far more aware of how to manage cash flow on an annual basis, and also the bigger the portfolio you have, the more your costs come in. Maintenance costs on a large portfolio are significant, whether you're just talking about certificates, small things to clearing gutters, to the odd roof going, the odd kitchen going, etc. You could, I would recommend it. We could have our own maintenance team, but that would be very difficult to manage. But just the point is, you need to work out how you go that quick pound, slow pound. It's almost your acquisition funds, and your living funds as well. But then you need to have a cash flow model that enables you to manage stuff, and particularly with students, because we have the summer dip when they're normally maybe half price rent. They also haven't got their grants, so and also even when they pay you, a lot of the time they'll then pay you 3 months up front. So it is a little bit all over the place. And then also, to be honest, making sure you keep what you earn. So doing everything as tax effective as possible. So using stuff like pension schemes to save incorporation.
We might save that as a top tip, Billy, because I think we're coming there now. I'll just put all that together, because I think I hear it a lot with people at landlord level who say, "Oh, I've got loads of refurbs on at the moment. I haven't got any money. I'm waiting for this remortgage. When this remortgage is done, then I'll have some cash, Adam." And I see people with significant net wealth who don't have systems to manage their finances, and get themselves in these situations where these quite wealthy people are actually living from hand to mouth, because they're not really managing they're not treating their business as a business.
Okay.
It's ad hoc. And I think that's some fantastic insight, Billy. So some interesting challenges. you niched and you had to diversify. You had to come up with a hybrid model for agents versus staff, and you knew your numbers on that, which I think's fascinating. Obviously, you've been very successful with momentum investing. You've changed strategies, not just areas. And you were very clear about the levels that you wanted to play at and what was going to work for you. And investor level is definitely your level. And putting in a number of systems, whether it's been people, recruitment, training, or finance, has allowed you to keep, you know, the car on the track. There's so much in there. There's so much from this already, so many tips. But if you had to summarize 3 top tips for people, what would they be?
Yeah, so the first one would be is, when I say know your level, I don't mean it as we say level, it is know your sweet spot. So I have landlord friends and people I've worked with that maybe have up to 10 properties, and it gives them the lifestyle they want, and they are hands-on, but they need to stop within 10, so they didn't run into that kind of overwhelm where you need kind of processes and systems. And again, then you work out whether you want to be an investor. So I'm very much like an asset person rather than a product person, which is maybe what a lot more, if you want to go on to like the front shop business owners are. So certainly know what level is your sweet spot, and don't think that it's a hierarchy. It's actually what works best for you. They're, you know, they've each got advantages and disadvantages. So I think that's certainly the first one.
Nice tip.
Second one is learn when to go from acquisition to operational mode. And I do think, you know, there's a bit of a joke. People go on mastermind, create a mess, and then they go on property entrepreneur and sort it out. And there's a lot of truth in that. And I think that's the reality. I've also worked with people who try and create a perfect model, but they've got no deal flow. They've got nothing to put into it. So when you are growing a business and a portfolio, you'll have a different way of doing stuff. You'll have different tools, processes, different financing models. But where I see people fall away is some people just want to grow the whole time. And it's a bit like that phrase that we've got, you know, more revenue doesn't mean more profit. So understanding how to switch that over. And then the third tip I would say is know your numbers. I mean, I'm amazed, and I don't know, maybe I'm just a geek with numbers, but I know, and people that you know as well, who are really financial, you know, successful businesses, are far bigger than what I am. And they've asked me to kind of do an audit, for example, of how they pay themselves. And, you know, just because they've never gone into the detail of it, they're wasting, and I'm talking like 30, 40% of their earnings not doing stuff tax effective. So it's kind of know your numbers from your own perspective and also the business. And again, you know, going into knowing it, just you are in a business. So when you run a business, your cash flow is key, profit and loss is key, balance sheets is key. You know, those 3 tools are key. With Xero, they're really not difficult to have them updated to you each month, but you've got to understand them. And if you don't, you've got to pay someone that does. Again, it's a bit like what you said. I've got one guy that has just asked me for some help just now. He's got a hugely successful portfolio, but he's at risk of going bust simply because he's got like about $250,000 of debt, and I kid you not, add about 70% per annum on like payday loans. But yeah, he's got a portfolio with over $1.5 million of equity. So it's kind of like, you know, and also don't be scared. You can sell stuff and just pay it off, but because some people's just about growth, they've done it at any cost, but they're not actually making sure their house is in order. So yeah, know your numbers. Some people, it's not exciting, but if you don't know your numbers, it will be difficult for the business to ultimately be successful long term.
There's such wise words there, Billy, from someone who's actually done it, walking the talk. You know, there's so much hype in the property industry around going bigger, going harder, and there's very few people. Success leaves clues, and there's the people that have done it really understand that actually you don't often need as much as you think you need. You just need to be smart, work hard, smart as well as work hard. That's really what you're talking, isn't it, about? It's like knowing your numbers and minimizing your tax bill from being smart, you know. So some great advice.
And again, that is one of the huge advantages of property. You know, again, the point that you have refurbs that go on, it actually lets you push a lot of your capital costs out. Point that until you sell, you're not paying your capital gains or increase in value. but you've refinanced them, so you've got more money to grow. So really, again, it's, to me, you know, you've got to enjoy property as well, but it's just, you know, I argue that I don't think I've done anything clever. I think I've worked out where the cards can be in your favor, and I just really think, you know, the population, etc., that as a business, you know, I think it's far easier to make money from property than trying to deal in shares, running restaurants, running letting agents.
I have to say, I agree. I think as a way to build wealth, which is what you're talking about, isn't it?
Yes.
It's absolutely fantastic way to go. So top tips were: know your level, know when to flip the switch from acquisitions to operations, and know your numbers. You know, understand that you need a cash flow forecast, P&L, and balance sheet. And if you're not doing those things, you're driving the car without any dashboard, and sooner or later, you know, the engine's going to explode.
Yeah,
so,
and particularly, I mean, if you don't know your cash flow, yeah, it will explode. You know, I mean, people can get by without P&Ls and balance sheets and just let it get done once at the year end. But if you know, unless you've got lots of money behind you and you're not managing cash flow, you know, you're going to crash, basically.
Fantastic. Billy, thank you from everyone at Property Entrepreneur. Thank you so much for giving up your time today to share your insights. It's been a really valuable conversation. And once again, just congratulations on making the Hall of Fame. Long overdue and thoroughly well deserved. And we really appreciate having you as part of our community. So thank you for everything that you do for us. It's much appreciated.
Always a pleasure. Look forward to seeing you soon.
And just as we sign off, if people want to know more or get in touch with you, what's the best way to follow you? Do you have a social media profile? Are you available? What's the situation?
Yeah, so you can message me on Facebook, Instagram. I'm not particularly active on social media, but you can find me there. I've also got a YouTube channel where I kind of have some investment tips to people. So if you contact me through any of them, I'll be good to hear from you. Know, happily chat with anyone. Yeah,
so it's Billy Turriff, 𝗘𝗶𝗀𝗶𝘀, and you have billyturriff.com, do you? Or did you have?
I do, yeah. I've got a website, 𝗂𝗶𝘀𝗀.com, where you can find out a bit more information as well.
Cool. So, Billy, thanks so much. I really appreciate that. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, buddy. See you soon.
Thank you.